Hi, this is Rebecca Rogers with Focus on America, our new podcast called Jump Right In. Focus on America, for those of you that do not know, is a grassroots organization formed to promote individual liberty, family values, and the U.S. Constitution by actively participating in the political process. Focus on America is inspired and compelled by our forefathers, men who risk everything to ensure our freedoms. And we encourage Americans to be informed members of their communities, recruit and develop candidates to restore God given, constitutionally guaranteed liberties, and to replace elected officials who do not represent their constituency and American values. We meet the third Saturday of each month, and we host numerous special events like the recent Alabama gubernatorial debate. You can find more information about Focus on America at focusonamerica.us on all the social media platforms and on YouTube, where you'll probably be able to see and hear this podcast. So we're thrilled to have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Danielle, and she's running for State House District 96. And with that, she's not a career politician. She's not afraid to take a stand on issues that matter to all of us who are members of Focus on America. She's a wife and a mother of 3 children whose husband works as an engineer. She understands what is really important for us here in Alabama, period. She will graduate in June with a Master of Arts degree in American History from Norwich University. And because of her education and understanding of our nation's history, she has a deep appreciation for what makes Alabama a great state to live in and to raise a family. So her and her family have called Baldwin County home for the last 15 years. She grew up in the South with values that matter most to us. Their children have received public, private, and home education. Thus, Danielle understands the importance of individual freedom and educational choice. She and her husband, Wesley, have been closely involved in their children's education and believe that parents should set the agenda for the values taught in school. As a Christian, Danielle is committed to the sanctity of human life for both the unborn and our elderly. As a constitutionalist, Danielle supports our Second Amendment rights to keep and bear arms and opposes the subtle attempts to restrict law-abiding citizens from protecting themselves and their families in exercising those rights. Danielle supports honest government and limited government, including limiting the government's ability to mandate medical procedures, medications, or vaccinations for any and everyone. Moreover, she's opposed to the expansion of government and the increase in taxes that come with it. Danielle does not support recent efforts to toll the Mobile Bay Bridge and will fight to keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket. She teaches English and reading ACT Prep in Daphne. She loves reading and gardening with her family, and she attends City Hope Church in Malbus. The biblical principles she holds shape her worldview and her opinion of the powers that government should and should not have. A vote for Danielle is a vote for freedom, liberty, and true conservatism. Danielle, thank you for being with us today. I want you to just take a few seconds and just maybe tell us why you're running. Why now? Why did you decide this was the time to run?
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm honored to be here. I decided, like you said in the bio, I appreciate you reading that. I am a wife, a mother of 3. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I am truly, deeply concerned for my children's future and for the future of all Alabamians. Over the course of the COVID lockdowns, I discovered how pervasive this federal overreach truly is and how unwilling our state legislature is to block it. So that was really my final wake-up call, or not wake-up calls per se, but that was really the final straw that broke the camel's back. When I decided, okay, this is it. I can no longer stay on the sidelines or the front line of activism. I have to jump in to the pit, so to speak, and get some things done because my representation was not.
And those are very good reasons. And if you've listened to anything that we've done or you followed Focus on America at all, you know we're open, honest, direct, hence the name Jump Right In. So, with that being said, so many people and politicians, they give our candidates, they give us their touch points. I'm conservative, second amendment, I'm going to stand for this and I'm going to stand for that. And then they're elected. We vote for them because we think, oh, that sounds good. And that is what we truly want. But then somehow they get to Montgomery and all of those promises and things they stood for seem to not matter anymore. So, with that being said, let's just jump right in. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And just tell us, let's get beyond those touch points and find out who Danielle really is. So, with that being said, would you support the limiting of the powers of the state health officer in Alabama?
Absolutely. I think the bill to give the state health officer full arresting powers was truly frightening. We've seen what some of these state health officers and governors have done during the COVID lockdowns. And it is just unprecedented, and it's a violation of our constitutional rights. These are not elected officials. And even if they were appointed by an elected official, we still don't need to have a health officer lording over our lives, directing medical decisions for you and your family. Those are rights that belong to the citizens, not to our elected officials. The Constitution is very clear on what the federal government powers are, what the state government powers are, and everything else belongs to the people. So we've got to stop allowing government to abuse these powers.
Do you have a suggestion on how we might be able to do that?
We need to get on the books. We need legislation that will limit these emergency powers of the governor, that will write some checks and balances into the system, because we've saw with COVID, it was a no holds bar. It was an unprecedented epidemic or pandemic, as they say, that allowed these governors to essentially rule by mandate. And when you spoke with your representatives, spoke with your elected officials about it, and pointed out how these are violations, they say, well, this is a special situation. Well, we have people dying. But those are not excuses to violate our rights. So we've got to get on the books never again legislation that will protect families, protect businesses, protect churches, and protect protect our workers from these unlawful mandates. People losing their jobs, their livelihoods, forcing to close their churches. We could not attend church during the pandemic. We could not attend at the facility, right? Worship in the sanctuary. I can't think of the word right now, but we were not allowed to attend services. Now, that's a violation of our rights to freely practice our religion. Not everyone can listen online. Not everyone wants to listen online. I know when I try to watch online church, my children automatically start crying and fighting. It's like a thing. They just have to do that when we're trying to watch online church. Everything will go wrong. The dog will start barking. The kids will start fighting. The doorbell will ring 5 times. And I lost that joy I used to get from having my spirit fed when I was in the sanctuary, worshiping with the congregation, worshiping with my fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. You lost that for, gosh, what was it, almost a year?
Yes.
Our churches were closed and our spirits weren't being fed. It was heartbreaking and it was unconstitutional. We have to get never again legislation that will prevent this from ever happening again. That's the only way we're going to limit this type of nonsense, is through state law.
Absolutely. And like you said, fellowship is so important. I mean, fellowship, we were meant for fellowship with one another. And, I think with Focus on America, we were as much of a church as we were a grassroots organization to uphold our freedoms, because our freedoms do include going to church. So we were meeting mask-free, no social distancing throughout the pandemic, and we were praying for each other. And You've had so many members come and say, you don't know what that fellowship meant for me. So having that fellowship with our fellow believers and our fellow citizens is a coming together to join arms for all the right reasons. And
Yes. And
that's
sorry,
okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt. If we can go into a liquor store and purchase alcohol, if we can walk into Walmart and purchase our groceries with or without a mask, however, whatever your personal choice was, if we can get out there and do those things, why can't we meet in church? There are people who say, well, it was dangerous. We didn't want to hurt, our fellow brothers and sisters. We don't want to hurt our elderly. If there are vulnerable people, they can choose to stay home. But for the rest of us who were willing to take that risk and go out into Walmart and go purchase cat food and dog food and whatever it was you needed, or go buy a bottle of liquor, or even abortion clinics remained open, if those places were safe, why couldn't we attend church? It was an attack on the family. It was an attack on us spiritually.
Absolutely. And speaking of spiritual attacks, when you get to Montgomery, how are you going to protect yourself from the establishment, from that? We are in a spiritual battle across the world. But everybody says, I hear so many times, Alabama is a conservative state. However, Alabama is one of the most corrupt states, and that's a well known fact. And I know when I am in Montgomery, I feel like it is such a spiritual battle, and you're swimming in a den of snakes. How are you going to stand up to the establishment? How are you going to protect yourself from that spiritual attack so that you can do what God sends you to do?
I just have to stay in God's word, and I have to surround myself with people who are also fighting that spiritual battle with me. So my prayer warriors, my girlfriends that call me up and ask to pray with me every morning before I hit the campaign trail. These are the people who have my back. These are the people who are going to call me out if I take a wrong step, are going to help me protect myself from these type of attacks. And just staying connected to my grassroots organizations who helped get me here. I didn't do this alone. I've had support from organizations, friends, networks of voters who believe in what I'm trying to do. So staying connected with them is going to help me fight that battle once I get to Montgomery. I need to stay connected to my people. I don't want to, I'm not there to make friends. I'm not there to make enemies, but I'm not there to make friends. This isn't high school. I don't care to belong to any cliques. I am there to do what the people want me to do in Montgomery. They want me to get up there and be their voice for the people in my district and protect the people in the state. That's what I'm there to do. And as long as God's on my side, He's with me. He will guide my steps. And I believe that I will have protection and I will be strong enough to fight it.
Awesome. Now, with that being said, I take it that you believe in personal and government accountability. So, with that, you just said how you will be personally accountable, but how will you also be accountable to the constituents that have elected you?
Well, personally, I want to host town hall events. I feel like our elected officials don't do a good enough job of getting out there and speaking with their voters after they've been elected. They want to come out and talk to us while they're campaigning, but once they're elected, we don't see them, we don't hear from them, and half the time, or half of them, don't even return your phone calls. So I want to hold town hall events regularly, especially right before every legislative session, hopefully during a legislative session, when I'm at home, when I have those, breaks to come home, and after every session. I want to host town hall events where people can come and talk to me, tell me what they're concerned about, what they want me to do up there for them in Montgomery. And then we can discuss how it went after each session. Here are the bills I fought for. Here are the bills I fought against. Here's what happened and why. Because a lot of times there are bills that maybe, the average voter has difficulty understanding or reading all the way through. These are written by lawyers. So these are sometimes difficult to navigate. So I want to break down each bill for the voter and let them know this is what it was, this is what it meant, and here's why I voted this way. I would like to put out possibly a newsletter or like a blog, something while I'm up there at my office, and I can tell people, okay, here's what's on the docket for today, and here's my thoughts on it, and this is how I'm leaning, or this is how I'm going to vote, or this is what I think we should do, just so people have an update, because I don't see that happening. And I feel it's vitally important, if you're going to be the voice for the people, that you have to actually communicate with the people.
Absolutely. And, an important topic for a lot of our members, or most of our members, it's been widely claimed that Common Core does not exist in Alabama. However, the most contradictory example is the passing of the Numeracy Act, which is costing taxpayers over $90 million. And this is to instruct teachers how to teach, not for our actual students. So, how do you feel about Common Core, mask mandates, critical race theory, or most recently it's been called social emotional learning? So, where do you stand on those things?
So with Common Core, most people, I'm going around door to door speaking with voters, and even the teachers will tell you Common Core is a nightmare. Most people don't realize that we still have Common Core standards in our K through 5 education, especially math. They don't realize that because I believe it was Kay Ivey who ran on a platform of getting rid of Common Core and proudly proclaimed that they had. However, they simply renamed it. The Alabama College and Career Ready standards are nearly identical to Common Core standards for K through 5 math. It's a major problem, and the Numeracy Act essentially codifies those standards into state law. We wouldn't need to deploy 700 math coaches throughout the state to help K through 5 math teachers teach their students elementary math if we didn't have these backward standards. That money, that over 90 million, I've seen different fiscal estimates. I thought it was up to 114 million annually. That money would be better invested in our school systems to decrease classroom sizes, give teacher raises, fund special education, things like that, rather than wasting it on salvaging or trying to salvage Common Core standards that are developmentally inappropriate for students. And speaking of inappropriate, social emotional learning, critical race theory, these are scary, almost Marxist communist type ideologies that they're trying to push down from a federal level into our states. So when I talk about protecting our people from federal overreach, this is one of the many things I'm referencing. This social emotional learning, which our legislature has passed the blueprints for, so they're getting ready to roll it out, and I wouldn't be surprised if it comes back next session. They want to have a mental health coordinator at every school who will identify through data retrieval, through gathering data on every student by the teachers. We're going to give our teachers yet another task aside from teaching, that they're going to gather data on these students to identify which students are at risk for social or emotional issues. So then the student is labeled and potentially, depending on the severity of the risk, followed up with social, through social services. We'll follow up with the families. This is intrusive and not something that the school needs to handle. They need to remember to stay in their lane. These issues, race, gender, social, emotional issues, these are not issues that the school is responsible for instilling or teaching our children. That needs to be handled in the home. These are social issues that need to be handled in the home. I don't want my students, my children's teachers, educating them on any social issues, because we don't know where these teachers stand. Do they align with my Christian values? Possibly not. Are they going to teach my child something about gender or sexuality that I deem is inappropriate for them? Possibly. These are not things that we need to allow our school systems to do. So the best way and mask mandates as well. These are decisions that should be made by the families. If the parent chooses to talk to their child about gender, or the parent chooses to put a mask on their child and send them to school, that is their choice. The best way for parents to combat this, if it's not what they want for their children, is to vote these school board people out who are allowing this stuff to happen. And so what I would do anything I could from the legislature to enact laws that will block this federal overreach from coming down into our state and affecting our education system.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you're familiar with HB 123 that was sponsored by Nathaniel Ledbetter. It made it where there was a mental health professional in every school in Alabama, and it allowed for them to be able to, without parental knowledge, speak to those children, which is just wrong. I don't want anyone speaking to my children without my permission unless it's a life or death. But it gives them the opportunity to set up social services to come in. And I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager or when I was going in, if somebody asked me about my parents, I would have said they were mean because I didn't get my way. And
Exactly.
that could have been
Exactly.
misconstrued to now I'm on a list,
Right.
and we had to fight to be able to get in. It limited it to the you have to opt into it now, up until age 14, but after 14 you still don't have to have parental
Mhm.
consent. And that is just wrong, because middle school, high school, those are formative years, and there's enough labels. We don't need our school labeling that. And you know our House leader Nathaniel Ledbetter sponsored that bill, and we have to have people who are willing to stand against those things and protect our most vulnerable. And as you said, most citizens, it sounds good because we think, oh, well, if our children need help, we want them to have help. Most definitely.
Right.
But we don't want to do it in a way where it gives government more control, and it creates more confusion for an already vulnerable population from a world view. So
Absolutely.
those are just things. And now we'll go to the next subject. So in the state of Alabama, in fiscal year 2021, reportedly there was a 1.3 billion surplus, and taxes are still rising. So what do you propose about all this never-ending taxes? I mean, from gas tax to property taxes to grocery taxes. I mean, we have a surplus, yet our taxes continue to rise. And even there's an amendment coming up where we have a surplus of 1.3 billion, but there's an amendment that will be on the ballot May 24th, sponsored again by Ledbetter, to fund our state parks, which funding our state parks can be a good thing, but they should be ran like a business. I'm all for our family enjoys state parks. However, it gives them the right, you will be voting on the right to borrow over $80 million. Borrow $80 million, go in debt for, yet the state has a surplus. How do you view things like the gas tax, tax burdens on our families? Where do you stand on those things?
I view it as all government greed. So we, with a 1.3 billion dollar surplus, and they're telling us that we cannot fund road projects in South Alabama. I want to repeal the 10-cent increased gas tax because South Alabama, specifically Baldwin County, is sending up a majority of that gas tax up to Montgomery. We are the fourth most traveled county in the state. We have our beaches in Baldwin County that provide lots of revenue for the state. However, when it comes for our road projects, we are underfunded. They're telling us that we're going to have to put a toll on our Bayway, which is a federal interstate, that they're going to have to toll it in order to pay for it. Yet they want to borrow 83 million. They want 83 million in bonds to fund our state parks. No one's trying. I don't see anyone actively fighting for federal dollars for this bridge, for defense spending for this bridge. This I-10 corridor connects California to the state of Florida. It runs along our entire southern coast. It bypasses countless military bases and vital U.S. ports. How is this not a matter of national security to alleviate the one bottleneck we have in the entire I-10 corridor, which is the Mobile Bay because of the tunnels? Why is that not an issue of national security or for our defense or for our federal, transportation? Why are we not getting federal dollars to fund this project?
Oh,
Why is Montgomery okay with pushing this off onto South Alabama taxpayers? We've already paid for this bridge. It was a federal highway. We've already paid for it in taxes. Now they want to tax us again with a toll. So we've got to repeal that 10-cent gas tax increase because we're not getting our fair share back down here in South Alabama. We've got to it doesn't even have a sunset date. It's set to be reevaluated every other year. Will go up or down by 1 cent. With the rate of inflation, I don't see it ever going down a cent. So every other year it's going to go up by 1 cent. I just spent $40 in gas the other day and I didn't even get half a tank. With how much gas is costing right now, it is outrageous that our legislature has not called a special session and addressed this gas tax like many other states have done. I am for more money in people's pockets, smaller government. The more money we give them through taxes, the bigger they're going to grow. And as government expands, liberty contracts. So that is not something I would ever support. We've got to do better.
would you support the legislature passing a law that allows them to call themselves back into session? Because right now, the only one that can call them back into session is the governor. And over the previous 2 years, we've seen that she calls them a bunch of turtles and doesn't call it back in. The only way they can be called back in is like Speaker McCutcheon and Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth could actually have put in a written request to call the legislature back in session. However, they didn't do that. Yes, the governor could have denied it, but they didn't even take those steps. So would you support the legislature passing legislation enabling it to call itself back into session with a majority vote?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if we have a rogue governor, one day, we can't always determine, who's going to be in power, right? So if we've got a rogue governor and there are things happening and the legislature needs to address them, we need to be able to call ourselves back up to Montgomery and address these issues because we are the voice of the people. We need to be able to do what the people want. If the governor isn't doing it, we need to be able to do it. So yes, I would absolutely support that.
Okay, in the style of our gubernatorial debate, we're going to close this out with a lightning round questions, yes or no. And just if you want to be able to, then we will close it out. You can give your closing statement, let people know where they can go to support you, where they can find more information about you, how you'd like them to vote on May 24th, and we'll go from there. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, we'll jump right in. So, do you believe that there is a political establishment in Montgomery?
Yes.
Do you think Montgomery is corrupt?
Yes.
Okay. Next, what? Are you aware of the Montgomery pig list?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Just for those of you who don't know what the Montgomery pig list is, for those who have been down there and worked for many years, the Montgomery pig list is the GOP leadership has chosen a list of candidates that they want elected, and that's who they're going to get behind. So that's the same way. It's been a list that has been reported that they want people on that list, and they're going to support those who will support their other efforts in being part of the establishment. So when we refer to the Montgomery pig list, that's what we're referring to.
Okay, yes.
Do you support bills like this session's SB 312 and HB 31?
Yes.
Would you support the removal of unconstitutional regulations and permits involving oil and gas exploration, production, and transportation.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to say that just close out? Let us know. People know how to get in touch with you if they have questions, how they can support you, how to find out more information, where you'll be, coming up, and then we'll close it out.
Thank you so much. Um, I really enjoyed this and I hope I wasn't too long winded. I can be located, I have a website, danielleduggar.com. My email is on there, my phone number is on there, links to my social medias. Facebook, I believe, is the most active. I try to post as much as I can there, the Facebook page, Instagram as well, and then Twitter is probably my least active, but I try to get on there. I'm running all my socials myself. So between knocking on doors and campaigning, I try to keep up with those. So reach out to me there anytime. Like I said, my phone number is on the website, so I am happy to take your phone calls. This Sunday, I will be having a meet and greet at New Life Assembly of God in Spanish Fort. It will be at 1 p.m. We're serving lunch. Anyone in the area on the Eastern Shore, please come out. I'm going to speak for a few minutes. We're going to serve you lunch. We're going to commune, fellowship, speak with other politically minded people in our area. Other candidates are welcome to stop by, and we're just going to have a good time. So that'll be from 1 to 2:30 p.m. at New Life Assembly of God in Spanish Fort. And otherwise, I will be out in the neighborhoods knocking on doors. So if you see me, please come say hello. It'll be a great morale boost because it's hot out there and there's a lot of people not home. So it gets a little discouraging at times. So if you see me on the ground, give me some water. And a little shade would be great. And otherwise, I hope to see y'all before the election. If I don't, please keep me in mind when you go to the ballot, May 24th. I am a fighter for freedom and liberty, small government, more power for the people, because that's what our founders wanted.
Well, thank you for jumping right in with us, Danielle Duggar, for how you're running for State House District 96 down in Baldwin County. We're glad to see fellow patriots standing up for what is right. We wish you all the best of lucks, prayers, and covering in all that you do, and we look forward to seeing all the great things God has planned for you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.